The courtroom was unusually quiet that morning. The cameras had already been set, the audience was in their seats, and even the crew members seemed to move with a strange anticipation, as if they sensed that the next case wouldn't be like the usual small claims squabbles that filled the docket. Judge Judy Sheindlin, sharp-eyed and composed as ever, entered with her usual presence, calm, commanding, and a little intimidating. She didn't need to raise her voice, her energy filled the room. When the bailiff called the next case, a woman in her mid-40s strode toward the plaintiff's podium. She wore a faded denim jacket covered with handwritten slogans and pens that read things like "Question Authority" and "The System is Rigged." Her hair was tied back in a loose bun, and her expression was that of someone ready to fight the world. Her name was Karen Holt. On the other side stood the defendant, a landlord who looked exhausted and weary. He barely spoke as the case began. But everyone's attention quickly turned to Karen. From the first few sentences out of her mouth, it became clear that this wasn't going to be an ordinary dispute about unpaid rent or property damage. "Your Honor," Karen began, her tone both passionate and confrontational, "this isn't just about me and him. This is about something much bigger. This is about the system, the way it's designed to crush people like me." Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. "Let's start with the facts," she said, flipping through the file in front of her. "You're suing your former landlord for retaining your security deposit. The amount is $1,200. Is that correct?" Karen nodded, but her hands were already gesturing as she spoke. "Yes, but it's not just about the money. It's about the way ordinary people are treated like they're disposable. I've been pushed around, ignored, lied to. And you, Judge Judy, you've seen it. You know how unfair things are. You should join me in standing up against it." The audience murmured quietly. Even the cameras seemed to lean in closer. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. She simply stared at Karen for a long moment, tapping her pen lightly against the desk. "Miss Holt," she said finally, "this is a courtroom. Not a campaign rally. And I don't join anyone. My job is to listen to both sides and apply the law. Now, tell me, did you pay your rent every month while you lived there?" Karen sighed impatiently. "That's not the point," she said. "The point is that he made up reasons to keep my deposit. He said there was damage when there wasn't. And I'm tired of landlords, corporations, banks, all of them, they all work together. It's a system that keeps people like me trapped." Judge Judy leaned forward. "I understand you're frustrated," she said, her voice still calm but firmer now. "But frustration doesn't replace facts. If you want justice, you need evidence, not speeches." Karen's tone grew more emotional. "Justice," she repeated. "How can anyone get justice when the whole system is built to protect the people with money and power? You sit there in that robe, but don't you ever feel like you're part of something that's broken?" For a brief moment, there was silence, the kind that fills a room when someone says something they probably shouldn't have. The audience's eyes darted between Karen and the judge, waiting for a reaction. Judge Judy slowly set her pen down. Her eyes, sharp and unwavering, locked onto Karen's. "Miss Holt," she said, her tone quiet but cutting, "you came here asking for the court's help. That means, whether you realize it or not, you believe in the system, at least enough to use it when it suits you. Now, let's stick to the matter at hand." Karen folded her arms, visibly irritated. "You don't get it. I didn't come here because I believe in it. I came here because I wanted to expose it. I wanted to show everyone how even a judge like you can't change what's wrong. Unless you decide to stop being part of it. Join me, Judge Judy. Use your platform to fight back." A gasp rippled through the courtroom. It wasn't every day that someone told Judge Judy to join them against the system. The bailiff glanced nervously toward her, unsure if he should step in. Judge Judy didn't respond right away. She simply leaned back in her chair, studying Karen the way a teacher studies a defiant student who doesn't realize how much she's revealing about herself. "Miss Holt," she said finally, "you think I don't understand what it means to fight against unfairness? I spent decades in family court before this show. I saw real suffering, children without homes, people who lost everything through no fault of their own. Don't tell me about injustice. I've lived it every day in my courtroom. Karen looked uncertain for the first time. Then why not use your voice, she asked, quieter now. Why not take a stand against the system? Judge Judy's lips tightened. Because shouting at walls doesn't bring them down, she said. You can't change a system by declaring war on everyone inside it. You change it one case at a time, one truth at a time. That's what real justice looks like. But Karen wasn't ready to give up. That's just what they want you to think, she said bitterly. They want you to believe you can only make tiny changes so that you never challenge the whole thing. You've got the power, Judge Judy. People listen to you. If you told the world the system was broken, they'd believe you. The room grew tense again. Judge Judy took a slow breath, keeping her composure. You're not wrong that the world is unfair, she said. But fairness isn't something you demand. It's something you earn, piece by piece. And it starts with honesty. So let's be honest. Did you or did you not leave that apartment damaged? Karen hesitated. There was some wear and tear, sure, she admitted. But that's normal. He exaggerated it to keep my money. The landlord, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Your Honor, I have photos, he said, holding out a folder. There were holes in the walls, broken cabinet doors, and stains on the carpet. It cost me more than her deposit to fix. Judge Judy took the folder and began flipping through the photos. Her face remained unreadable, but her silence said enough. After a moment, she looked back at Karen. These look like more than wear and tear, she said. Do you have any proof that the damages weren't caused by you? Karen's voice shook slightly now. I didn't take pictures when I moved out, she said. I didn't think I'd need to. I thought people would be fair. Judge Judy set the photos down and folded her hands. People should be fair, she said softly. But fairness isn't a guarantee. It's a responsibility. And when you don't protect yourself with evidence, you leave your case to chance. Karen's shoulders dropped. The fire in her voice dimmed to something smaller, something almost vulnerable. So that's it, she asked quietly. You're just going to side with him because he has pictures and I don't? No, Judge Judy said. I'm going to side with the facts. That's what justice means. It's not about who talks louder or who feels more wronged. It's about what can be proven. Karen's eyes filled with frustration again. Then what's the point? The system always protects the people with proof, power, and property. People like me, we never stand a chance. Judge Judy's tone softened for the first time. You're wrong about that, she said. The system doesn't reward power. It rewards preparation. You think you're fighting the system, but really, you're fighting your own disbelief in it. You can't win a battle you don't believe you can fight fairly. Karen looked down, her hands gripping the podium. The audience could feel the shift. The fiery challenger had suddenly become a woman standing face to face with her own disillusionment. Judge Judy leaned forward again, her voice gentler now. You want to make the world fairer? Then start by being fair yourself. That means being truthful, being responsible, and learning from your mistakes. Change doesn't start with tearing things down. It starts with understanding them. Karen didn't reply. For the first time since she walked into the courtroom, she had no words. Judge Judy sighed, then spoke quietly. I'm ruling in favor of the defendant. The evidence shows the damages exceeded the deposit. Case dismissed. Karen stood still for a moment, not moving even as the bailiff announced the end of the hearing. Finally, she looked up at Judge Judy and said softly, maybe you're right. Maybe I was too angry to see it clearly. Judge Judy nodded once. Anger can be a fire, she said. It can light the way, or it can burn everything down. You decide which. As Karen turned to leave, the courtroom remained utterly silent. The audience wasn't sure what they had just witnessed, a simple legal loss, or something much deeper. And though she walked out without her $1,200, there was something different in her eyes. Not defeat. Not exactly. Maybe, for the first time in a long time, understanding. When Karen stepped out of the courtroom, the bright studio lights hit her eyes like a wave. The moment felt heavier than she'd expected. The audience had clapped politely as the case ended, but she hadn't stayed to listen. Her heart was pounding, and her thoughts were tangled. The hallway outside felt strangely quiet. The buzz of the cameras faded, replaced by a hollow silence. She stopped for a moment near the exit, staring at the floor. A crew member walked by, offered her a small, sympathetic smile, and kept going. Karen had come there full of fire, ready to make a statement, to challenge something bigger than herself. She had walked into that courtroom believing she'd exposed the hypocrisy of the system. But instead, she had been forced to look into a mirror she hadn't wanted to face. As she waited for the car to pick her up, she replayed the words in her mind, "You can't win a battle you don't believe you can fight fairly." They echoed louder than she expected. For the first time in years, she felt something unfamiliar, quiet. Not silence, but the absence of anger. 2 weeks later, Karen sat in a small coffee shop near her apartment. She had been thinking a lot about that day. The landlord had already sent her the final notice confirming the case was closed. She could have rented online, blamed Judge Judy, or told everyone how the system was rigged. That's what she usually did. But somehow, she didn't. Instead, she found herself reading articles about tenant rights, law blogs, stories from people who had gone to court and actually won, not because they shouted the loudest, but because they prepared the best. And slowly, something inside her began to shift. She realized that her anger, while justified, had become her identity. She wasn't fighting the system anymore, she was fighting everyone. The government, landlords, employers, even friends who didn't agree with her. Every time life disappointed her, she called it proof that the system was broken. But maybe, she thought, the system wasn't just out there. Maybe it was something inside people too, the way they gave up, stopped trying, stopped believing they could change things. One afternoon, as she scrolled through her messages, she saw a notice from a local community group. They were holding a meeting about housing rights and tenant advocacy. Normally, she would have dismissed it, assuming it was just another group talking without results. But this time, she paused. Maybe she could go. Maybe she could learn. The meeting was held in the back room of a library. About a dozen people sat in a circle, young, old, working class, students, retirees. There was no shouting, no conspiracy talk, no grand speeches. Just people sharing stories about unfair evictions, rent hikes, and ways to document damage and protect themselves legally. Karen listened quietly for most of it. When it was her turn to speak, she hesitated. "I went on Judge Judy," she finally said, her voice uncertain. A few heads turned in surprise. "I thought I'd expose the system. Instead, I kind of exposed myself." People chuckled softly, not unkindly. "I blamed everyone for what happened to me," she continued. "But I didn't have proof. I didn't have facts. I just had anger. And she told me something that's been stuck in my head ever since, that you can't fight for fairness if you don't practice it yourself." The group leader smiled. "That's powerful," she said. "Sounds like she gave you a lesson you weren't expecting." Karen nodded slowly. "Yeah. She did." From that night on, something changed. She started volunteering with the group, helping tenants write letters, gather documentation, and understand their rights. It wasn't glamorous work. No cameras. No headlines. But it felt real. Every time she helped someone get their deposit back, or avoid an unfair fee, she felt a little spark, the kind of victory she had once thought was impossible. Months passed. Karen's bitterness faded, replaced by purpose. She learned how laws worked, how to read contracts, and how to communicate without shouting. She even began speaking at small workshops, sharing her story, not as a cautionary tale, but as proof that people could reclaim power through knowledge, not rage. And yet, deep down, she still thought about Judge Judy. About that quiet strength. About the way she didn't take sides, but still stood for truth. One morning, almost a year after her court appearance, Karen received an email from a producer of the show. It was short and polite. They were filming a follow-up stories special, checking in on memorable participants to see where they were now. At first, she laughed. No way, she told herself. I'm not going back there. But that night, she couldn't sleep. Something told her she needed to. Not to argue again, but to close a chapter. A month later, she walked once more through those familiar studio doors. The courtroom looked the same, but she didn't. Her posture was different. Her voice calmer. When Judge Judy entered, Karen stood quietly, waiting for her to take her seat. The cameras rolled. Judge Judy looked up from her notes and seemed to recognize her almost instantly. "Miss Holt," she said with a faint smile, "I remember you. I didn't expect to see you back here." Karen smiled back, a little nervous but sincere. "I didn't expect to be back either, Your Honor. But I wanted to thank you." The courtroom murmured softly. Judge Judy tilted her head slightly. "Thank me?" she asked. "That's not something I hear often after ruling against someone." Karen laughed lightly. "I know. But you were right. About everything. I thought the world was against me. I thought shouting about injustice was the same as fixing it. But it's not. You told me fairness is a responsibility, not a guarantee. And I finally understand that now." Judge Judy's eyes softened. "That's quite a realization," she said. "So what have you been doing with that understanding?" Karen's face brightened. "I started volunteering. Helping tenants learn their rights. Showing people how to protect themselves before things go wrong. I still believe the system has problems, but now I'm learning how to change it from within, not just fight it from the outside." Judge Judy nodded slowly, visibly moved but still maintaining her composed demeanor. "That," she said, "is how real change happens. Through knowledge and persistence, not through chaos." Karen's voice wavered just a bit as she replied, "You taught me that justice isn't something to demand. It's something to live by." For a moment, even the cameras seemed to fade away. The audience was silent, not because they were told to be, but because they were witnessing something rare. A woman who had once come in angry and defiant was now standing in the same place, humble and transformed. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice warm but steady. "You remind me of something I've said for years," she said. "If you want to build a better system, you start by being better yourself. That's how fairness spreads, one person at a time." Karen smiled. "I think I finally get it now." The judge nodded. "Then maybe, Ms. Holt, we're finally on the same side." The audience applauded, not the usual quick clapping that followed a verdict, but genuine, lingering applause that filled the room with something deeper than entertainment. It was the sound of understanding, of redemption. After filming ended, Karen walked toward the exit again, but this time, she wasn't alone. Judge Judy stepped down from the bench and approached her. Away from the cameras, her tone softened even more. "You've done something most people never do," she said. "You faced your own reflection and didn't run from it. That's real strength." Karen nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "You gave me that push," she said. "You showed me that justice isn't about winning, it's about learning." Judge Judy smiled faintly. "And learning never ends. Keep using your voice. But remember, the strongest voices are the ones that speak with reason, not rage." Karen nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the lights around her. As she walked out of the building, the sun hit her face. She looked up at the sky and exhaled, not in frustration, but in peace. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was fighting everything. She felt like she was building something. And maybe, in her own quiet way, she was doing exactly what she had asked Judge Judy to do that day, joining the fight against the system. Only now, she understood what that really meant. It wasn't about rebellion or noise. It was about truth, compassion, and responsibility. Weeks later, she returned to her volunteer work. One evening, a young woman came in, angry, desperate, feeling wronged by her landlord. Her words were sharp, her frustration raw. Karen listened patiently, recognizing herself in that young woman. When the woman finally paused for breath, Karen said gently, "You know, I once felt exactly the way you do. I even said to a judge that the system was against me." The woman frowned. "What did she say?" Karen smiled softly. "She said the system doesn't change because we shout at it. It changes because we do." The woman blinked, her anger easing just a little. And in that quiet moment, Karen realized she had become something she never imagined, not a victim of the system, not its enemy, but part of the small, steady force working to make it better. Sometimes change doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. And sometimes, it begins with a single conversation in a courtroom, between a woman who thought she'd lost everything and a judge who reminded her what justice truly meant. The day Karen told Judge Judy to join her against the system, she thought she was starting a revolution. She was. Just not the one she expected.